Hi all, I'm Azure. Today we've got a little bit of a discussion video about one of the newer concepts introduced into Kingdom Hearts as of late, and that is the idea of a quote-unquote world line. This concept is extremely new, having only first been introduced in the Kingdom Hearts 3 secret reports, specifically Secret Report 11 by Luciu, where he talks about how the Union leaders transferred to other world lines. Which, in this scenario, I think he's talking about the dandelions being sent to what we know as the Unchained Realm now. We don't have a full idea what the Unchained Realm is, although we know that people in the Unchained Realm can peer into the dreams of others, so this could mean it's some kind of offshoot of the Realm of Sleep, maybe? But that's a totally different topic for a different video. They get sent there to be in a level of stasis safely before they're sent to the data world following the events of the Keyblade War leading into Union Cross. That's why in Unchained Key, before Union Cross, you're essentially reliving the events of Key up to that point, because part of the plan for Ava given to Ava by the Master of Masters was that the Dandelions have to forget the events of the Keyblade War, and that's part of the reason why they were given Chirithes, because the Chirithes, being Dream Eaters, are going to eat the nightmares that they're having about the Keyblade War, and essentially let them forget about those memories and make it as if they're living through a dream. As we get into this, I want to first talk about the places that Worldlines have been mentioned, and due to the fact that it's a very new concept, there isn't really that many. First, like I mentioned, Luciu mentions it in Secret Report 11 in Kingdom Hearts 3 when he states, "The virus has begun a strange undertaking, a reckless plot to allow the Five to escape into another world line. Surely such a thing can't be possible. We're talking about the same trick that allowed the Dandelions to transfer to other world lines after the Keyblade War." He then mentions it again in the following report, Secret Report 12, when he says, "Amid the chaos, I bequeathed my Keyblade to one of the Union leaders, just as the Master instructed. I watched as the Five were sent to another world line, at no small cost, ensuring the line of Keyblade wielders will live on." Now, I think personally there's a couple of ways to interpret this. The way in which Lucius specifically mentions the same trick that allowed the dandelions to transfer really reminds me of the Master's plan for Ava, which is moving the dandelions from the Realm of Light to the Unchained Realm before again moving them to the Datascape version of Daybreak Town. But at the same time, there is another possibility. We know of a couple of sources that the worlds of Kingdom Hearts all have their own individual timelines and flows of time. You can think of them as like time zones in the real world. You know, it might be 2 p.m. here in the UK, but at the same time, it's 9 a.m. on the east coast of the US, that kind of deal. So when they're in Traverse Town talking to the World Ends With You gang in Dream Drop Distance, this is what Riku tells us.
So time flows differently here and there? So what? That's true of any two worlds. Their homeworld would be running on a different time axis too.
Yes, I understand that. But if these Traverse Towns were parallel worlds, then time would flow the same in both. But it doesn't. Ergo, they are not parallel worlds.
You mean there's a past and a future?
No. Impossible.
So what I think specifically is going on here is that specifically world lines may be the timeline of a world rather than the realm it's kept in or just the world specifically. Something that's been bothering me for a while is connected to the events of Dark Road. During this game, Xehanort and his class, they go out to the worlds to find their upperclassmen, Wonderland being one of these worlds, and eventually Xehanort's classmen manage to, gather the ire of the Queen of Hearts and be put on trial. And with the wrath of the Queen, that manifests her darkness as a Heartless. They slay that Heartless, they leave the world. 4 years after the events of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road, after Baldur stormed Scala at Kylum and left Xehanort and Ericus as the only underclassmen left, Xehanort would go back to Wonderland, allowing himself to be captured by the Queen's soldiers. There's a problem though. When Xehanort proceeds to the stand, the Queen doesn't remember him at all. And despite having been there once already, and more worryingly, the darkness that Xehanort had already fought way back 4 years ago was already back in the Queen's heart. This really shouldn't make sense unless time moves extremely slowly, but that doesn't really explain why she doesn't remember him. And the only way it makes sense to me, personally, is if the worlds of Kingdom Hearts all run on a time loop. This is further backed up by the fact that 70 plus years later, Sora, Donald, and Goofy go to Wonderland and experience the exact same thing. They go through the events of Wonderland. Nothing about Xehanort is ever mentioned. The only thing that doesn't happen in Kingdom Hearts 1 is they don't find the Queen's Darkness, but I think that's purely because Nomura didn't have that kind of idea thought up at that point. This goes doubly true for other worlds. You've got Agrabah. The movie's events happen in both Key and Kingdom Hearts 1. Dwarf Woodlands, Key and Birth by Sleep. Olympus, Key in Kingdom Hearts 1. Enchanted Dominion, Union Cross, and Birth by Sleep. The events of these movies play over and over again like they're on a loop. We can see an example of being placed at different points in a timeline during the end of Union Cross. Everyone gets in their lifeboats and they seem to arrive roughly in the time of Birth by Sleep. However, there is a slight difference with Ven and Skuld, who will assume in this scenario is Subject X, like the Kingdom Hearts 3 secret reports state. So we have Laurium and Elrena, who both arrive in Dwarf Woodlands and the Enchanted Dominion respectively at unknown points in time. However, based on their age and appearance when they become Marluxia and Larxene, I think personally that it's pretty clear that they're going to be around about the time of Birth by Sleep, because they look kind of similar in age to both Lee and Isa, who of course we see in Birth by Sleep as kind of younger kids around about the age of Ventus. Ventus and Skuld, on the other hand, leave at relatively the same time. I want to say maybe no more than 30 minutes, maybe just a little bit after, but we'll get into that later. And despite that, Ventus appears in the Keyblade Graveyard 60 years after the events of Dark Road and just before the events of Birth by Sleep, where he would eventually be picked up by Master Xehanort. But Skuld, on the other hand, she doesn't appear until an additional 1 to 10 years after the events of Birth by Sleep, appearing in Radiant Garden, well after the events of the final episode where Aqua would sacrifice herself to the realm of darkness, and Terra, possessed by Xehanort, would begin going under that name, Xehanort, as an apprentice of Ansem during the 10-year time gap. How on earth is that possible? Does that mean that the entirety of the events of Missing Link, Dark Road, and Birth by Sleep all happen in the time that it takes for Skuld to travel? Well, it's kind of difficult. I want to say yes and no, because as we've already discussed, time isn't linear in the Kingdom Hearts universe. Every world has its own unique starting point and its own unique timeline that it has to follow, its own world line. Let's run through a quick, brief timeline of events for the ending of Union Cross. Brain, Laurium, Elrena, and Ventus all leave the Data Daybreak Town, ending up in the real Daybreak Town. Laurium, Elrena, and Ventus leave Daybreak Town in the lifeboats. Ephemer and Skuld both fight the player. They leave Data Daybreak Town. They go up to the roof, come back down to the basement. They get in their pods, and Skuld's pod is the only one that leaves. Ephemer, we know, stays behind in Daybreak Town and would eventually go on to found Scala at Kylum. And now, based purely on the raw cutscene time, the time taken between Ventus leaving in his pod and Skuld leaving in her pod is exactly 18 minutes and 16 seconds. Now, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit and say we'll add 5 minutes for the Ephemer and Skuld versus player fight, as well as an extra 8 minutes for the time that it takes for Ephemer and Skuld to go up to the roof in the elevator and come back down to the basement in the elevator, which brings us to a grand total of 31 minutes and 16 seconds. You mean to tell me that the events of 3 games takes place over the span of 31 minutes? No, exactly. Because they've entered different world lines of each world, every world has its own timeline, we know the lifeboats were originally designed to allow people to travel between worlds, not to travel between timelines. And we know doing this will have the unintended effect of sending people to different timelines, or potentially in this case, world lines. And it's not like they're traveling slowly either. These lifeboats, they shunt you at such a breakneck pace that the light that would normally protect you from the now dark void separating the worlds actually tears your body apart, leaving only your heart behind. So to me, the only logical conclusion based on everything we've talked about in this video is that in the time that it takes for Ven to leave, Skull to leave, generations have passed in other worlds, even Scala ad Caelum, a world which Ephemer, like we said, built himself. And he was with Skuld that whole time, bear in mind. A world line is an individual world's timeline, and every world begins at a different starting point. This is without even mentioning the time discrepancies between something like the worlds of Kingdom Hearts and Quadratum. Based on the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, only a week has passed between Sora doing everything in Remind, going back in time, saving Kyrie, fading from existence, whereas at the same time, both through the Remind Limit Cut episode as well as Melody of Memory, the cast has spent upwards of a year looking for Sora. So I think until we get some more information on this specific subject, it might be difficult to parse what exactly this means for the Kingdom Hearts series as a whole. We've known for a very long time that worlds have different axes of time, since almost 12 years have passed between Aqua entering and leaving the Realm of Darkness, and she didn't age a day. But I would like to know what you guys think, because this is a super malleable topic that could genuinely be taken in a million different ways. I'm sure Kingdom Hearts 4 and I guess Missing Link would have had it not been cancelled, given us some kind of follow up to these questions as the Master of Masters and Lucio begin to enact whatever plans they have in Quadratum. Make sure you comment your thoughts below. Goodbye for now, and may your heart be your guiding key.